Hi guys, it's Riley with another all English episode. I hope you guys are, getting ready for Golden Week. I'm recording this on Thursday the 23rd. And yeah, it's basically all I've been thinking about recently. I don't know, my first month of the new work year, I guess you could call it, hasn't been the worst. I can't really complain that much, but I'm certainly ready to get a few days off. So yeah, I've been looking forward to Golden Week a lot. Yeah, I don't really have any, I don't know what to say, advertisements or announcements to make at the beginning of the podcast here. Maybe I should do my job and say buy Sota's new book. Yeah. Or go to his Instagram,英語のそーた, or mine, Reilly Sullivan XD. I don't have any links for books or anything at all. I might not even have any new posts. But yeah, I think you can find his book at 英語のそーた, or you can certainly find it at the podcast's Instagram account. Definitely. All right. Today I'm going to be talking about bicycles, but I'll be getting into that a little bit more after the break. Okay, yeah, so I just mentioned briefly at the end there, I'm going to talk about bicycles. Japan's police or the government or whatever recently changed a law about bikes. To put it more accurately, they made existing laws enforceable, right? I don't think they added any new rules. They just made actual penalties for breaking rules that already existed. So some of those things are like holding something while riding a bicycle, for example, an umbrella, or certainly a cell phone, smartphone, whatever. Riding on a sidewalk has gotten a lot of publicity, I think. Riding two people next to each other, like two bikes next to each other. There's a few more, not stopping at stoplights or stop signs, or I guess maybe in Japan you call them stop lines, the white lines on the road that say you should stop. Not following street signs, basically, right? Or other traffic rules. I think riding with headphones in is also, bad. It's always been bad, or it's always been illegal, I should say. Also not riding with a light, not riding with... I forget, there's some rule about, basically you have to have brakes on your bike. I forget exactly how that is worded, but if you don't have brakes on your bike, it's against the law, right? And then riding while drunk, right? Or not even drunk, but riding after having drunk alcohol has always been illegal, but is the fine or the enforcement of the fine has been made more strict recently. Right. I'm sure that I'm missing a few, but those are maybe the major ones, or the ones that could affect me, if I'm being 100% honest. And yeah, like I said, those things have always been against the rules, right? When I used to ride my bike to work at my previous job, I had about a half-hour commute, and work would finish at 9 or 9:30. I think 9:30. And so I would have to ride my bike about a half hour through the countryside. This was in the neighboring town next to Takamatsu. So it wasn't even Takamatsu City. And I would ride my bike through pretty much the countryside, through some kind of, I don't know what to call them, rice field roads. It barely feels like a road for cars, right? It's just kind of like a road between two rice fields, and stuff like that. And it would be pretty dark. And every once in a while, because I was lazy or I forgot, my bike light wouldn't be charged. And so in the middle of that ride, my bike light would die, right? And I would have no light. And a couple of the times that happened, police caught me, right? And every time they would catch me, they would stop me, they would talk to me for a little bit, they would say, hey, what's going on? And I would say, oh, yeah, I have a bike light, it's just that the battery died. Like, I forgot to charge it while I was at work or last night or whatever. And every single time the police would say, okay, we're going to write a little note or whatever that says that this happened, but I never had to pay any money. I never got in any real trouble, or anything like that. I think also a couple of times, police stopped me for riding with, a headphone in, not a headphone, an earphone, I should say, like a wireless earbud, kind of thing. But the same thing happened in those situations. The police would just say, hey, don't do that. And that was it. I think if that were to happen now, if police were to catch me riding with an earphone in, and look, I'm not going to admit to any crimes here, but, it's not impossible for me to imagine riding my bike with an earphone in, because I usually, I would only ride with one earphone in, so that I could still hear the road, and I think that should be okay. I've heard a rumor that is okay, that police actually won't fine you, they won't make you pay money if you only have one in. I'm not sure if that's true. That's just a rumor I heard from somebody who said that they know a police officer. But yeah, so stuff like that, riding with an earphone in, riding without a bike light, those are things that I can imagine happening. And I think the penalty, as far as the amount of money you have to pay, is not that bad. I think it's a few thousand yen. It's annoying, but it won't ruin your week or whatever. I think the riding with while using a cell phone, or using a cell phone while riding a bike, I think that's 10,000 yen or something. That's somewhat significant. But then riding a bike after having drunk riding, I guess you could say. I think the penalty for that is 100,000 yen or more, and could even be jail time. I think it is just as strict as driving a car drunk. I have some feelings about that. Basically, I think that, yeah, okay, I admit that riding a bicycle while drunk is dangerous, but I would say that it's mostly dangerous for the cyclist, right? For the person on the bike. Probably 9 times out of 10, maybe 99 times out of 100, the person that gets hurt in that situation is the person on the bicycle, right? They're too drunk, they can't ride a bike, they fall off their bike, they hit a pole, they fall into a ditch on the side of the road, something like that, right? Maybe it's possible that they're riding their bike drunk and they get hit by a car because they're too drunk and they're not following traffic laws, like they ride through a red light, or they're not paying attention, they don't see a car or hear a car or whatever because they're drunk. Yeah, in that case, certainly they could get hurt, and it's possible that the person in the car could get hurt. So again, I'm not saying it's okay to ride drunk, but I would say that the penalty for drunk driving, as in using a car after drinking, should be more severe than drunk cycling, just because the amount of damage you can do with a car is much more significant than the amount of damage a person can do with a bicycle, right? I don't know, if a drunk person is riding their bike very fast, 30 kilometers an hour, and hits someone, that will do damage, and probably both people will be injured. But a car going however fast, you could easily go 50 or more, driving drunk, 50 kilometers an hour, I mean, you could kill someone very easily, and people do, of course, kill people while drunk driving, and themselves. And I think that the penalty for the crime should reflect that amount of damage, And, maybe in real life, like when someone actually goes to court for drunk cycling versus drunk driving, maybe the average penalty is higher for drunk driving. I don't know. But anyway, I just wanted to say that because I think, I don't know. I think it is kind of strange to see that the penalty for riding a bike drunk is the same as driving a car. But that's the last I'll say about that, because I think, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say this, but in Takamatsu, it's fairly common for people to ride their bikes home after drinking. Right? I have quite a few friends, Japanese people and foreigners both, who, until recently, until the law changed, would ride their bikes home after drinking, because it was close, and because there's not very many trains in Kagawa to begin with, but definitely, the trains stop fairly early here. The last train is maybe 11 at the latest. So yeah, it was just convenient that after drinking you would drive home. Not a car. You'd ride your bike home. That is a difference. Like with all my Japanese friends, that would sometimes ride their bikes after drinking, they would absolutely never drive a car drunk, or after drinking even one beer. They would never do that. But riding a bike was always a little bit different here, at least among my friends. But now, since April, since the law changed, absolutely nobody that I know is still riding their bikes after drinking. I mean, maybe because the law changed and they want to respect the law, but I think also because they're scared of the potential penalty. I mean, it could 100,000 yen or up to jail time is obviously pretty significant. I want to compare this a little bit to the States. I rode my bike for about a year and a half, while I was living in New York, while I was in college. When I lived in Manhattan, it was pretty convenient to get around by riding my bike. After I moved to Brooklyn, it was considerably less convenient because I lived about an hour train ride from campus, from my classes, and so it just wasn't reasonable for me to ride my bike all that way, every day just to get to class. And also my bike got stolen, so that was another big thing. But whatever. Stealing bikes is extremely common in New York City, but I want to talk about kind of, how can I say, cyclists' manners or how people ride bikes. So there's kind of different classes, I guess, of people who ride bikes. There's people who rent bikes that are called city bikes, and these might be people just going to work or maybe tourists or something like that. They tend to probably follow the rules a bit more, but they're maybe not as confident on a bicycle. So in New York City, if there's not a bike lane, which I think nowadays there are a lot more than there were when I was in college, like a protected bike lane. But if there's not a bike lane, it can feel pretty dangerous on a bike because drivers in New York can be pretty aggressive, like cars, I mean. And so often if you're on a bike, to be safe, you should be a little bit aggressive yourself. And so people, they're called bike messengers, people that deliver packages and stuff on bikes, or people that want to be like bike messengers, which was kind of the class that I fell into. I rode a single speed fixed gear bicycle. I still do in Takamatsu, but I did in New York for a little bit, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of cool. It looks cool, I think, right? I don't know. That's one of the main reasons to do it. I also think that riding a single speed or a fixed gear bicycle gives you a little bit more control of the bike because you can stop with your feet, and it also is simpler to maintain because you don't have that many moving parts. There's not as many things that can break. That's why I like it. But those people, bike messengers, fixed gear riders, they tend to break the rules a lot. Like a red light in New York doesn't necessarily mean stop if you're on a bike. Most people who ride fixed gears, certainly bike messengers, run red lights, go through red lights pretty often, maybe almost all the time, because they kind of know that, like, they know when the cars are going to go, or if there are no cars, then certainly they'll go through. And that's the same for walking in New York, like compared to Japan, where, except maybe Osaka, right? We've talked about this on the podcast. If the light is red, you have to stop, right? Even if there's definitely no cars coming, you wait until the light's green again. To someone in New York, I mean, when I first moved here from New York, I thought that was kind of crazy, right? Like, because you can look left and you can look right and you can see there's no cars coming. I can cross the street. But, in Japan, you don't do that. You wait. On a bike, if the light's red and you don't see any cars, or the cars aren't going to come soon enough, you go through the light. That's pretty normal. It's also somewhat common to ride a bike like in between cars, like in the middle of the street. I was very rarely confident enough to do this, but you will see it pretty often. So yeah, like breaking traffic laws on a bike is pretty common in New York, and I think probably people who drive in New York probably don't like cyclists for that reason. As for riding your bike drunk or after drinking, yeah, it probably happens in New York. I don't honestly know what the penalty would be if you got, if the police stopped you. Maybe it might be something, but I doubt it's as strong as if you're driving a car drunk. And I kind of doubt that a cop would stop you unless you were breaking another law, or like, very clearly drunk because you were, I don't know, riding like unsteadily, right? You weren't riding straight or something. I don't know. That being said, and I've probably talked about this before, but like, even drunk driving is kind of acceptable in the US, right? Like the legal limit for driving a car is 0.08% blood alcohol level, which maybe that doesn't mean anything to you guys, but like for me, I think for someone like my size, to get to 0.08, I probably have to drink like 4 or 5 beers in an hour, right? So like if I have dinner and I'm drinking kind of a lot during dinner, if I have like 5 or 6 beers with dinner, or 5 or 6 glasses of wine, or whatever, then I couldn't drive. It would be illegal for me to drive. And again, only for like an hour. It's likely that if I waited a couple hours without drinking anymore, that I would then be under the legal limit, right? That's the law in America. Now, I think personally, well, I don't drive, but even when I did drive, I would be more careful than that. Like, I probably would have 1 beer and drive when I lived in America. And I think most Americans are probably around there. They'll probably drink 2, maybe, depending on their size, 2 beers and be okay to drive, 3 beers and maybe be okay to drive. For men. For women, maybe it's a little bit less, right? Depending on their size and how strong they are at drinking or whatever, right? That in America, that really comes into the equation. While in Japan, it's much simpler. If you drink any alcohol at all, you can't drive. So yeah, like if that's the kind of policy about cars in America, then I imagine, of course, bikes, it would be even more relaxed. Like it's okay if you have, I don't know, as long as you can ride a bike, as long as you're not too drunk to stay on the bike, then maybe it's okay. I don't know. I'm just guessing there. But yeah, I think these are the kind of differences between the rules for riding a bike in America and in Japan. And yeah, I don't know. I'd like to hear what people think about it. If these new rules are like affecting how they ride a bike, or if they strongly disagree with me and say that like, no, absolutely not. If anybody drinks at all and rides a bike, they should be punished the same as someone who drives a car. Yeah, whatever. Let me know. But I think I will leave it there with this episode. I hope if you're listening to this and you don't ride a bike and you don't care about bikes, I don't know. Thanks for listening all the way through. If you do ride a bike, yeah, let me know what you think of these new rules. All right. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.